Hello and welcome to another episode of WTF Happened to My Body. I am your host, Natalie Garay, and I am so excited to yap away on the topic of perimenopause and menopause. I have an upcoming workshop about hormones. This is the topic that we hear a lot about. A lot of us don't know a whole lot about it. It is another topic that I'm geeking out on currently because guess what? Mama's in perimenopause at the moment, and I am deep diving into what that looks like and how to be able to keep my wits and my tits about me. So, welcome to another episode. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you being here and sharing the podcast, downloading it, liking it, tagging me on Instagram at Natalie Says WTF. Back to the workshop that I mentioned, December 29th. 2024 at 11:30 a.m. Pacific time, I am going to be teaching a free workshop called From Fatigue to Freedom. WTF is happening to your hormones and how to fix it. That is free to you to join, to come and ask questions, and to come and get the information that you need so that you are feeling better. Better, I mean less sweaty, less fatigue, less hot, less angry. I've heard and seen and felt so many of these symptoms that we are expected to just live with. It's BS. I'm done with it. I will not deal with it. I choose not to. And so that is me declaring that I am not here for it. So I'm looking, I'm learning, I'm researching, I'm going back to fucking school, and I will be sharing it with you here on Instagram. Join me in the channel there if you haven't. And also the North of 40 Club will be opening soon, and join me there and get all your questions answered. Today, we are talking about perimenopause and menopause. Now, I recently in October of this year, went to New York, and I went for two reasons. So one was for the premiere of the movie, The M Factor. I contributor to Intentional Living magazine, which is a magazine that is published out in New York. And I had the opportunity to have an article published in it. And so the publisher asked me to write an article in the magazine. It was the Menopause magazine. It was a menopause issue. So I wrote an article titled The North 40 Club, Thriving After 40. It was such a great honor. I was thrilled. And for that, they had a launch party. And I thought, well, how fun would it be to go to New York? I was there in June with my daughter for another magazine party, which I also had an opportunity to have an article in. Grateful for Intentional Living magazine and Sarah Stone, who is amazing. At the same time as of the magazine launch, they were also premiering the M Factor documentary, which I highly, highly recommend. That was put together by Tamsin Fidel, and I forget Joanna. I'm so sorry. But I had the opportunity to watch this movie, and it was mind-blowing. Mind-blowing. I went through every emotion. I went through every fucking emotion. I was surprised. I was floored at the information that these doctors shared. Essentially, what Tamsin did and others who worked on the film was take a deep dive into menopause. What to know. They interviewed all of these amazing top doctors, menopause specialists, crammed it all into this documentary, and we all left with our mouths wide open, sweaty, because we're all perimenopausal and menopausal and angry. And I went home that night to my little hotel in New York and just sat there and just went through all the emotions. I was angry. So much. So going back in the last episode, I touched on this study that came out in 2002. And that was the year that my twins were born. And I was 26 at the time. My mom was probably in her early to mid 40s. This study came out that said that estrogen causes breast cancer, and people went bananas. Women were scared, of course. Women were pissed at their doctors. Doctors were scared. What does this mean? What do we do? So immediately, all of these women went off of estrogen. And for those 20 years, women have had nothing to support themselves for the most part. No hormone replacement to support their hot flashes, to support their achy joints, to support their brain fog. Everyone was scared shitless about being on estrogen. And so now all of these menopause specialists and all these other doctors have been trying to share that the study was wrong. The study was false. It was poorly done. Yeah, it was poorly done. And the numbers were shared and skewed. And you can learn about it more in the documentary about what actually happened. And so it angered me and it made me sad. And I was in tears in one of my moments. I went from rage, I went from sadness, I went from, just all of it, but also eventually inspired and excited and just kind of doubled down on the reason why I am sharing about this, learning about this, going back to school is because my mom didn't have this information. I want my generation to have this information. I want my daughter's generation to have this information and the generations after that. So I'm doing this for the generations who didn't know, and I'm doing this for the generations who need to know. And so going back, I just highly recommend watching this documentary. It's called The M Factor. You can find it on PBS. You can look on the website. You can look online. You can find it there. Just watch it. So I went to New York, celebrated my magazine launch, watched this documentary, went through all the emotions, had a great time with other contributors for the magazine. Then I also had the opportunity to attend the premiere again on Friday night of my weekend in New York with the creators of the movie, of the documentary. Tamsin Fadal was there, Joanna was there, and all of these doctors that were in the documentary were there. And I got to sit in the front row with Tamsin's husband, which was so bizarre, and be in the front row and listen to these doctors. And again, it was just this really, really strange moment of like, oh my God, I'm here. This is the work that I want to do. I'm with the people that are doing it now. This is where I want to be. And there's another doctor that I absolutely love and follow on Instagram named Dr. Lisa Mosconi. And she is a neuroscientist who works at Cornell, who is doing brain scans and studies on women's brains before menopause and after menopause. And her work is absolutely fascinating. And of course, I'm obsessed with it because my mom and her dementia and her inability to get new support for her menopause, and therefore it could potentially have had a link to her dementia. So I got to sit in the front row and listen to Dr. Lisa Mosconi, Tamsin Fadal, and all of these other doctors, Sharon Malone, talk about their work with their patients in menopause and the study and everything that they've learned and how they're just sounding the alarm and making sure that women have this information. I am here to do the same thing. This is where my podcast comes in. This is where my Instagram channel comes in. This is where my schooling comes in and the North of 40 Club. But this is the information we need to know in order to live a happy, healthy life with vitality into our later years. Because I know from experience, also from watching my mom, and now from learning, continuous learning, we don't have to deal with this bullshit. And we can actually take care of ourselves a certain way so that we can reduce these symptoms, if not avoid them altogether. So that was Friday night. That was the best time. I was there with myself. Of course, I was out of my comfort zone because I am I've labeled myself an introvert. I just am not the best at engaging. Although I will say I did engage in conversation the next day at this other event. So it was a weekend packed with events. One of the other events I wanted to go to was thrown by The Swell, which is put together by Naomi Watts, the actress, and her business partner, Alicia. And Naomi Watts has been very vocal about her experience through menopause because she experienced it. No information was available. She had no idea what to do. And she has since created a product company for women in menopause. And now they put on this annual event and they bring in all the doctors that specialize in menopause and women's health. And a lot of the doctors, the same doctors that were at Friday night's event and that were in the documentary, were also at this event on Saturday. And so I got to hear all of them speak all day long. The authors of Estrogen Matters, Dr. Lisa Mosconi was there. She shared about her research at Cornell. She shared images of the brain scans, images of the brain before menopause and after menopause. Dr. Vonda Wright was there talking about the importance of building muscle mass and how that is our key to longevity. So many amazing things. I'm still processing this event months later. This was back in October, so 2 months later. And it just inspired me to keep going and keep learning and to keep sharing. And they talked about the study that came out and scared all the women shitless and how they've been doing cleanup work since then to be able to share that it is safe for most women. And of course, these menopause specialists know the right questions to ask in the labs to run to make sure that it is safe for you. And so this event was an all-day event. I met some amazing people. I met someone in line. I got there early and I just happened to start talking with this woman in line. We got to talking and she was a physician and she had just gotten off the phone with a child of hers who was looking into going to medical school. And she was like, are you sure? Her husband's also a physician. So I left that conversation. I was great. All these women were there for one reason, that is to learn as much as they can and to be able to offer the support to whomever they're supporting in their lives. And I left that conversation because I felt like I overshared, basically. I felt like I overshared. I walked away going, oh my God, did I just give her my entire life story in 5 to 10 minutes? But I ended up running into her again. And she said she recognized me actually from the previous night's event, the documentary. So I share this story because I just got off of a podcast interview with her yesterday. She invited me to be on her podcast, and she and her girlfriend, business partner, have created this podcast. And so here's a little nugget. I guess don't be afraid to overshare or talk to someone in line because you don't know what becomes of it. And so that's the moral of that story. But I met some phenomenal women on that day and during that event. Someone else that I keep in touch with, a couple people actually I keep in touch with on Instagram. And it's just inspiring to see all of these women coming together for one big cause, one great cause. And that we know that they're out there. And I know that they're out there and that I can refer people to them. Say someone happens to find the podcast and they need help with pelvic floor support, which obviously I can support them with because I've done that for years and years and years. And my Pilates studio, my focus was that for 20 years, still is. I can still do it. But I also know someone in Virginia who can do it. I met somebody there and if someone's in Virginia and she needs pelvic floor help, then you can go to my physical therapist friend in Virginia. So I love these events because it just, like I said, it inspires me. It just kind of reiterates what I'm doing, helps me double down on this thing because it is quite an undertaking to create this business, to create a podcast, to go back to school, to learn the sciences as a dance major in my undergrad. And so I wanted to share some things that I learned at this event because it is very important. Things that I had no idea. We hear about hormones. We know they go out of whack. We know we have a hormonal experience at puberty. We have crazy teenagers who went through it. We went through it. We were crazy. We don't know how we ended up. We're still standing. We don't know how we lived through that. Go through a crazy hormonal experience during pregnancy and childbirth and thereafter. And then we go through another experience in our late 30s, 40s, and then in our 50s. And the thing is we think that, it'll pass, but the body is constantly changing. And like I shared in last episode and other episodes about going in for my blood work and retesting is I have to recalibrate every so often, every so many months, because the body is continuing to change. Even though I've been able to reverse my biological age by 18 plus years, and I'll keep sharing that over and over again, I still need to recalibrate for the other things that are popping up in the lab. So my hormones and my liver health and heart health. And did you know that hormones and a decrease in hormones can affect your heart? I didn't. Obviously, we know that there's chemicals and hormones in the brain and that a loss of estrogen can actually shrink the brain. And that is also part of the brain fog that shows up. So I've got a list. There's over 100 perimenopause and menopause symptoms, by the way. So I'm going to share a list. There's so many, but I'm going to share a few here. I have them written down. So symptoms of perimenopause and menopause linked to hormone decreases. So that's what it is your hormones are decreasing and now you're experiencing symptoms. And it'll happen in I want to say it's a hypothalamus, and that is and the thyroid. And when that happens, that is a temperature regulator. And that's what happens. That is how part of the reason why we experience these hot flashes and night sweat is this temperature regulation isn't working at its proper function. It's basic, it's to me, it's just the body's always talking to us. And I wrote this in the book and I've said it before. Your body is always saying something. The ache, the brain fog, the fatigue, all of these things are just, for me, clues to say, okay, what's going on? What do I need? How can I support my body today and tomorrow and ongoing? Because it is an ongoing process. It's not a one and done thing. It's a daily process. It is work, and it is necessary to refresh and recalibrate things as we continue to age. Aging is inevitable. Getting old, not necessarily. Getting old means not being able to sit on the floor and get up easily. Being old means needing, sometimes, not everybody, needing a nap in the middle of the day. Maybe it's not. Maybe you do need naps in the middle of the day. Being old means, I don't even know, but you get the gist. And so here we go. Here's the list. Estrogen decrease will show up as hot flashes and night sweat. It will also show up as vaginal dryness and discomfort during intercourse, sleep disturbances, or insomnia, which I hear a lot about. And actually, that's why I'm doubling down on my health and wellness regime, because I'm experiencing sleep disturbances and I am very adamant about getting good sleep. I have a sleep routine at night. I wind down at a certain time. I don't eat after a certain time. I go to bed at a certain time. I get up at a certain time. I am very strict about my sleep because I know how important it is for our brain to heal at night, to restart at night, or refresh, I should say. The brain needs sleep in order to clean itself. Mood swings, anxiety, and depression. So I've noticed that a lot more so with my body too, is like feeling a little bit more anxious, which I've never considered myself a stressed person or an anxious person. And I'm noticing a little bit of that now. And that is because of a hormone decrease. I also had a panic attack that I was not, of course, who expects a panic attack, but I was like, what the fuck is this? I was on a plane and I had to really calm myself down. I really had to focus, breathe, and take a minute and really talk myself out of it. It was really, really bizarre, to the point where I almost got off the fucking plane and was like, okay, this is it. I'm not going on this trip. But I made it safely and my fears did not happen. I did not go down. Memory lapses and brain fog are also a symptom of decreased estrogen. Weight gain, we hear that shit ton, right? Particularly around the abdomen, yes. Thinning hair and hair loss, absolutely. Dry skin and reduced elasticity, yep. Loss of bone density, osteopenia and osteoporosis, which if anything, that is huge, because one fall with a brittle body and that could take us out. And that's one thing I love about Pilates and why I encourage a lot of women to practice Pilates. And I teach Pilates, whether it's, online or in person here on my reformer. I still have reformer that I kept from my studio when I closed it and sold it. Urinary tract infections or incontinence. Yeah, because when your estrogen decreases, the muscles get weaker, and those muscles that are pinching the opening to your bladder start to weaken. And so now when you laugh, sneeze, cough, or jump, urine leaks. So you have incontinence issues. So you lose muscle mass. And I'm noticing I've lost a little bit of muscle mass. And so increasing muscle mass is important for overall wellness and strength. You need it. So progesterone decrease, irregular periods, or skipped cycles. So what I learned in New York is that you could be 35, even younger, and be going into perimenopause. Some women will experience perimenopause or menopause much earlier if they have a medical procedure. They call that medical menopause. So say you had your ovaries removed, or you had something like chemotherapy or something, it could send you into an early menopause. Again, sleep disturbances are a symptom of progesterone decrease or trouble staying asleep. Doesn't fly with me. I need my sleep, so I'm checking into it. My 3 a.m. wake up calls every morning, I don't think so. I'm not doing it. Water retention and bloating. Testosterone, here's another little tidbit I learned. Testosterone is not FDA approved for women in the US. Just men, and they make it very hard to get testosterone for women. So what is happening? There was a urologist who is in Seattle, Washington, or Washington State, I should say. I don't know, next to Seattle. She was interviewed in the documentary, and she talks about this. As a urologist, there's no FDA approved testosterone for women. So what she has to do is take a dose for men and distribute it that way. Women don't require as much. So she has to tell them, take a teeny tiny bit of this packet. This packet will last men, this amount of time, but it will certainly last you much longer because you don't need it. So that's how she's having to currently distribute that. But of course, if it was for a man, it's readily available at any time, just like your ED drugs. Testosterone decreases show up as a decreased libido, fatigue and reduced stamina, loss of muscle mass and strength, thinning hair loss, changed moods, including low motivation and depression. Of course, there's more hormones. I mean, we have more hormones like DHEA, melatonin. There's more. Those are the three main ones that start to decrease initially. And what I learned is that most doctors will advise putting you on estrogen and progesterone together. And if you need it, testosterone. It was huge. It was mind blowing to learn all of this. And yeah, like I said, I'm still processing it. And there's so much that hormones are connected to. Achy joints. Here's some of the things that, like I was talking about in a previous episode, that my mom experienced. So she started to feel down. Her mood was decreased. Her mood was low. And so she went to her doctor and she was put on an antidepressant, which most women are. I think most women, when they go into a doctor and they say, I'm not feeling like myself, I'm feeling down, I don't know what to do. That was just how they were taught to help women for the most part. Nobody knows anything about menopause. And in the documentary, they also interview all these doctors and ask them, how much time did your medical schooling spend on menopause or women's health? And menopause specifically, most of them were saying none, or all of them were saying either none, 1 week, 1 hour. It was very, very minimal. And so my mom was put on an antidepressant. Well, another thing I remember her always complaining about was her shoulder. Her shoulder always bothered her. And actually, this shoulder is actually feeling really fucking good today. But I've started to have shoulder ache. Frozen shoulder is a symptom of hormone decrease. Brain fog, as we know, is also a symptom. I'm trying to remember the other things. Incontinence. I know that my mom experienced incontinence, but at the time, even as a Pilates instructor who rehabilitated women who experienced incontinence, and she did do some Pilates with me for some time, I didn't know was hormone related. So all of these things, looking back in hindsight, I was like, oh shit. If we had had mom on hormone replacement therapy or supported this decrease in hormones in some way, she would have felt so much better. And what's infuriating to me is, again, not having that information at that time. That study had come out. And so even if she had gone to the doctor to say, I would like hormone replacement therapy or something to help me along those lines, they would have said probably no, because the study just came out. And I remember her looking at me and saying, I've got to do something. She knew that something was wrong. Excuse me, I got a tickle in my throat. She knew something was going on. She would come out in and out of her, her dementia fog and be like, something's going on. I don't know, but I've got to do something. And terrible. It's sad. And, there's probably a million stories like that with women. And women are more likely to develop dementia and Alzheimer's than men for the reason of experiencing multiple hormonal shifts in our lifetime, from puberty to pregnancy to perimenopause and menopause. And one of the doctors that was in the documentary and at the Swell event said, you were never out of it. You're never postmenopausal, I believe is what she was saying. You're never over it because your body will continue to lose its decrease in hormone. And so it's something to continue to monitor and take care of. And even if you have been menopausal or even if you have not had your period, so the factors they look at are if you have not had your period in over a year, you're menopausal. And if you're having irregular periods, that means like it's probably the beginning of the end. I remember going into my naturopathic doctor's office last year and I was like, okay, my period's irregular. I'm not really having any night or sleep disturbances, but I do have the occasional like beating on my legs of sweat. But it's nothing, I don't know why I was like, yeah, it's no big deal. Why would I deal with that? Well, now over a year later, now I'm experiencing more night sweats and more hot flashes during the day and fatigue. And so, and sleep disturbances, like I said, I'm like, this is not going to fly. But I remember, and I haven't had my period since July of this year. So we're going on almost 6 months. But I remember going into my naturopathic doctor's office and I was like, is this the beginning of the end? Because my periods are irregular. I haven't had one, I think I hadn't had one in a month or two. And she's like, well, let's do some blood work and we can see. Some will say too that you don't necessarily need the blood work to know that you're in perimenopause or menopause. Simply track your symptoms and know. There are several websites now where you can go for telehealth. Some will require lab to prescribe your hormones to you, and some won't. And because I'm such a geek, I have gone with one that will look at my labs and tell me like, what are my levels exactly, and what is it that I actually need? Same with my supplements. I want to know exactly what I'm deficient in and then take supplements accordingly. I don't want to just pop supplements because everyone says you should be taking, X, Y, and Z, or this is great for everybody, but I want to know what's going on in my body and take care of it accordingly. Because in my mind, and I think we're moving in this direction, like healthcare and preventative care is not one size fits all. We need something specific to our body and our needs. And I'm loving that we're moving in this direction of more one-on-one care, more preventative care, because a lot of the time when we go to our primary care physician, it's not necessarily preventative care. It's just saying, okay, you're fine right now, but I want to know how I can support myself for next year and for the next 5 years. I don't want to be, 5 years down the road and be like, oh, shit, yeah, you've got, I don't know, diabetes, or you've got early signs of dementia. Had I known that, or, had I been aware that this is a possibility or that I could have shifted something, I certainly would have, so that I wouldn't be at this point. And that's just me. And if that's you, then I am here to support you on that. I'm here to educate you on that. And I love working with clients one-on-one to be able to create this blueprint for you based on what your lifestyle is, based on what's going on with your body, and based on what your lab work says, and creating a custom roadmap for you so that you can optimize your health and so that you can be fully functional well into your 40s, 50s, and 60s. Because if you are like me and you have a shit ton of goals that you want to accomplish, you're going to need all of the life force energy that you can muster. And for me, that looks like continuing my 4-year doctorate program, doing an internship afterwards, continuing to support my clients, continuing to be around for my 3 daughters at optimal function. I want, like I've said multiple times, I want a wit and a tip about me. I don't want to be 100 and sitting in a chair with my mouth gaping open and slobbering. Sorry. And I just want to do what I can do. And that, like I said, we each have our own decision and we each have our own choice. And some of us can do certain things and some of us can't. That's just, some of us might have limitations and we can work with those as well. I lost my thought there, but I want them to feel my best as much as I can. Oh, I was going on about goals. And I feel like I've come across a lot of moms and women in general who come to this point in their 40s or 60s even, and they're like, I, I used to do this, that, and the other for so many years. But that's not what I want to do anymore. And I want to change courses, change the, direction of my life. Should I do that now? Can I do that now? Do I have the energy to do that now? And that's why I'm doing it, is to be able to get through the program, but not just get through it, be able to, you know, retain it all so that I can help people. And one of my goals is also to continue, or I should say, get back to performing and dancing. At some point, I have a dream of performing on Broadway. And maybe that is one show and I'm one and done, but I want to do a musical. And I just think that would be such a blast, and be able to use some long lost or long not used skills, and perform again. So those are my goals. Those are my dreams. And I know that you have some too, and that you are just questioning whether it's too late. You're questioning whether you should take the time to do it. You're questioning how long is this going to take? And I remember thinking, I'm going to be over 50 when I graduate. I will be close to 52 when I graduate. I'm 48 now. I'm going into the program next fall. I'll be 49 at that point, a 4-year program. So I think I'll graduate in the spring of 2029, closing in on my second year. And, time's going to pass anyway. So why not start now? Why not start the thing that you've been put on the back, have put on the back burner for all of these years? The goals that you have thought about for all these years, and you're like, I just don't have this, I just don't have the capacity. I have the kids, I have the job, I have the partner, I have this. And now you're like, yeah, okay, well, that's not necessarily the deal anymore. I do have this time. Should I do this? Now's the time, sister. Now is the time to put yourself first. Now is the time to take charge of your life and go for it. What's the worst that can happen? What's going to happen? You're going to learn something. And that's the thing, is like, I know by learning and learning the sciences specifically, because it's challenging, that my brain is working and functioning. Like, it's actually growing new synapses, and also delaying any cognitive decline. So the more you learn, obviously, the more you learn, the more you exercise, the more you eat well, the more you maintain your hormone health and your micronutrient health, the better your brain will function. And I will do a whole episode on brain and brain health in the near future. I already have a book idea in my brain and head for the next book. Although I keep telling myself, slow your roll, sister, because now's not the time to start that project. But maybe it is. Maybe it is. Maybe I do it every summer and I complete it by the time I graduate. Wouldn't that be a fucking deal, huh? Thank you again for joining me for another episode of WTF Happened to My Body. I want to hear from you. I want to know if this episode was helpful. I want to know what you want to learn more about. What are the WTF questions that you have about your body? You can send them to me on Instagram. I'm more than happy to talk with you there. My Instagram handle is WTF. I'm sorry, that's not it. Natalie Says WTF, which is also my website, nataliesayswtf.com. You can find access to masterclasses there. You can get on a wait list for the North of 40 Club. You can get on the wait list for the book. And you can learn about other ways to work with me so I can help you navigate this North of 40 experience, because it is going to be the best chapter of your life. It can be. It's a decision. It's a decision, right? It's a choice. Can I talk anymore? So find me there. Tag me on Instagram that you listen to this episode. Send me your question. It's all up from here, friend. It's all up from here. Do not fall for the BS that it's downhill after 40, because I'm living proof that you can reverse your biological age. Look at me. I'm 29.7 years old here, and we just keep getting better. We're all just going to keep getting better. It's just going to get better from here. Thank you for joining me. Have a beautiful rest of your day. Bye.